In an era when plagues ravaged the heart of Europe, the very air itself carried omens of doom and whispered of death. Darkness shrouded the plains and cities of France. It was here that a story unlike any other was born. A tale of a brother and sister who found themselves caught in a struggle far greater than them as children. A conflict that did not concern them, in a merciless world that spared no one. In France, in the year 1348, while the Black Plague swept mercilessly through the land, the de Rune family, a noble house living in their grand estate, seemed, at least outwardly, distant from the chaos. Amicia de Rune, a 15-year-old girl, was raised within the walls of this estate. Her relationship with her father was strong. He would take her hunting deer, teach her the precision of slingshot aim, and instill courage in her heart. Her mother, Beatrice, was always busy with household affairs, and, above all, was devoted to caring for her young son, Hugo, Amicia's little brother, a child no older than 5, who had been ill since birth and isolated from the world. Amicia knew almost nothing about him beyond his name. Hugo was an enigma, rare and puzzling, given the pitiful state Amicia observed him in. He spent his days behind closed doors, watched over by their mother and the family doctor. Amicia did not understand the nature of her brother's illness or the mystery surrounding him. Yet the curiosity inside her burned like a raging volcano, one that no answer or explanation could quench, until the day everything changed. On a fateful morning, while Amicia and her father wandered through the woods, they noticed that dogs and livestock had been slaughtered brutally, in a strange way they had never seen before. This was not the work of wolves or bandits. When they returned to the estate, they were shocked to find the Inquisition surrounding the manor. Soldiers clad in black, led by Lord Nicholas, stormed the estate with force and violence. They had come searching for the boy Hugo, for reasons yet unknown. During the invasion, Amicia's father was slain before her very eyes. Her mother Beatrice sacrificed her life to ensure her daughter's escape with young Hugo from the clutches of Lord Nicholas. With her last breath, she commanded Amicia to flee with her brother at all costs. There was no time to understand. Amicia grabbed her brother's hand and ran. For the first time, she had to take care of him, her helpless little brother, for whom the whole world had turned upside down. The two fled the castle and hid in plague-infested rural villages. But the situation outside the castle wasn't any better. The plague was everywhere. Corpses filled the streets, and black rats swarmed like a flood. The Inquisition was ruthlessly hunting them down. It became clear that Hugo wasn't an ordinary child, but carried a strange secret, because everyone wanted to capture him. On their journey, Amicia met new friends, among them Lucas, a young apprentice to a doctor, who joined them. He was a smart young man, well-versed in ancient alchemy. From him, Amicia began to understand that Hugo's illness wasn't just a simple disease. It was something much bigger. It was a condition known as the macula, not a typical disease, but a parasitic genetic phenomenon, or an ancient curse passed down through the de Rune bloodline. This power lived in Hugo's blood and gave him the ability to control swarms of rats, but it was slowly killing him unless he learned how to control it. The rats had spread with the Black Plague and had become a symbol of death and destruction everywhere. Even the church learned about Hugo and started hunting him down, as they wanted to use his power for their own purposes. Throughout their journey, Amicia fought many battles. In one village, soldiers cornered them, and she had to rely on her wits, her slingshot, and homemade traps. She even burned fields to stop the rats, because the rats had a deadly fear of light. That's why Amicia often depended on lighting fires or carrying light sources to protect herself and her brother. During a violent chase led by Lord Nicholas and his troops, Amicia was captured and brutally beaten in front of Hugo's eyes. At that moment, a storm of fear, rage, and sorrow built up inside her little brother. And something very strange happened. Black veins began to appear on his face and hands. His eyes completely changed. Then a strange wave burst from him, a scream that shook the ground beneath them. Suddenly, massive swarms of rats erupted from underground, responding to Hugo's fury as if connected directly to his mind. Hugo wasn't consciously controlling them at first, but the rats overwhelmed the battlefield and devoured the soldiers. In that exact moment, Amicia broke free from the soldiers' iron grip, thanks to her brother's unleashed anger. It was then that Amicia realized, for the first time, that Hugo had an unnatural power, one that could either save them or destroy everything. But to understand this power, they had to travel to a distant university where an old book existed, one that contained the secrets of the macula and how to control it. The family doctor, Laurentius, had warned them before his house was completely destroyed by rats and the Inquisition. If you want to save Hugo, you must go to the university. Look for a book called Sanguinis Itinera. You'll find it there. Inside the university, through soldier-filled hallways and libraries engulfed in flames, they found the book, with the help of their friend Lucas. From this book, they finally understood the reason behind the Inquisition's relentless chase and the importance of capturing Hugo. They learned everything. The macula's power wasn't just destructive, it could be controlled, but only if there was a balance between Hugo's mind and body. That was the only way to use it properly. From then on, Lucas began teaching Hugo how to calm himself, how to give mental commands to the rats, and how to deal with them instead of losing control. Hugo slowly began learning from Lucas how to command the swarms of rats like a terrifying weapon against enemies. But he was still just a little child. He cried a lot, was scared of his own power, and tired easily. He constantly needed Amicia by his side, to comfort him, to protect him, and to help him master this strange and dangerous ability. After Hugo learned the art of controlling the rats, he was no longer that innocent child hiding behind Amicia. He became a storm, walking on two legs. Anger, sorrow, and accumulated pain, all of it exploded at once, turning him into a living nightmare that devoured anyone who dared to harm him or his sister. Hugo no longer ran from death. He became death itself. His first act of vengeance came when he heard a soldier insulting his mother. In that moment of rage, his eyes opened wide, and the ground beneath them erupted. Rats surged like a flood, erasing their bodies from existence in an instant. Then he turned his wrath toward those who wanted to make him a monster, the cult that used him as the Rat King. He stormed their hideouts without warning, rats swarming through walls, tunnels, books, through everything. Burning, choking, collapsing, nothing was left of them but ashes and silence. But that wasn't enough. The true revenge still awaited. That group that had killed his father when he was just a child, imprisoned his mother until she died, and chased Amicia with swords and curses, they had to pay. At the top of them stood Lord Nicholas. Hugo walked into their domain alone, but he wasn't truly alone. The rats came before him, crawling from under houses, sewers, behind walls. The screams of revenge echoed endlessly. No one survived. No soldier. No priest. No monk. Everyone perished, just as his family had before them. Hugo didn't enjoy what he did, but he didn't know any other way to express his pain, the suffering he had endured with his sister. Every scream, every tear, every breath echoed silently in his mind. Why did you kill my father? Why did you imprison my mother? Why did you betray my sister? Why did you exhaust me, a little boy who only wanted to love? Hugo took revenge on everyone, but he lost his strength. He lost everything. Nothing remained but destruction and ruin across the land. After months of suffering, fleeing, and countless battles, Amicia and Hugo reached the point of no return. The power of the macula inside Hugo had become too strong to suppress or cure. It spread through his blood, growing with him, igniting a battle within him between innocence and destruction. The more he tried to control it, the more of himself and his body he lost. Hugo was slowly turning into the very source of the plague. He was no longer just a child. He had become the heart of the catastrophe. In the city of Marseille, their last hope for a cure, things spiraled out of control. Rats spread like never before, covering the ground and the sky, devouring and destroying all living things. The city began to collapse, as if the end of the world loomed on the horizon. And it all stemmed from the heart of a little boy, torn apart by a force too great for him to bear. That's when Hugo understood the truth. He was the disease. He was death. He was the plague. So he asked one final thing from his sister Amicia. He asked for the end. He cried out, "If you love me, end this madness." It was the hardest moment of Amicia's life, standing between being a sister and being the world's final hope. In silent tears, among the ruins of a city devoured by rats, Amicia picked up the slingshot her father once taught her to use, pointed it toward Hugo, who was tied to a tree, and with a heavy heart, she let go. The shot struck true. Hugo collapsed, lifeless, with the peace of a child falling asleep after a long day of play. It was over. The rats stopped. The plague calmed, and silence returned to the land. But Amicia's heart never found peace again. Now broken, she stayed behind on the island, alone. But she knew his sacrifice wasn't in vain. He saved the world, and she saved Hugo from a fate worse than death. As she sat by his grave, she could still hear his voice echo in her mind. "Amicia, I'm not afraid, as long as you're with me." And so ended the tale of the boy who carried a centuries-old curse inside him, and the sister who stood against the world to protect him, only to choose saving the world from him. Not from Hugo, but from the curse he carried. In the darkness that had cloaked Europe, it was right that this mysterious secret die with him, so that life could begin again. And thus ended the story of Amicia and Hugo, the story told in a plague tale. A story that began with escape and ended with sacrifice. Not a tale of victory, but of love in a time of death and loss. Of a heart that was forced to break, so the world wouldn't. But the question remains, was it truly the only solution? Was it the right choice? And can a girl ever carry the sorrow of ending her brother's life forever? If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe, like, and turn on the bell for more stories. And join us in the journey of discovering games that are more than just games.